Welcome to Radio 64. Welcome to Radio 64, Video Game Music Remix Radio. I'm your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. And please rate, subscribe, and share this show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. The track we opened up the show with is called Ghetto Recursive by djpretzel from ocremix.org from the game The King of Fighters 98, the Slugfest. I don't know anything about The King of Fighters 98, but I love that late 90s hip-hop sound going on there. A sound I equate to the Street Fighter 3 soundtrack, though the Street Fighter 3 soundtrack has a lot of energy to its hip-hop sounds, whereas this King of Fighters track we just listened to, the Ghetto Recursive, it was very laid back, a chill piece. Wouldn't be surprised to hear it on Chilled Cow. It's that kind of slow hip-hop beat going on. And I don't know how you'll feel about it. I like the turntable record scratch sound. Maybe it's there a little bit too much, maybe it's a little bit too heavy, but I like it. It never bothers me, and I think it kind of adds to the flavor. It's a sound effect I tend to enjoy in these lo-fi hip-hop tracks. That was Ghetto Recursive by djpretzel from ocremix.org from the game The King of Fighters 98, the Slugfest. Up next is a really interesting piece, a meditative piece, if you will, that comes from the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time soundtrack. What is being remixed here? The Water Temple and the Serenade of Water themes. The Water Temple has a reputation in Ocarina of Time as being the difficult dungeon. You know what, I remember playing it, and I had a strategy guide at the time, and I even got lost in the Water Temple. Even with the guide and the pictures and the instructions, there was still times I'm like, I don't know where to go. But the Water Temple was really interesting. It had that kind of mystical sound quality going on, as did the Forest Temple. But the Water Temple, besides having all the levels with the water, it also is where you face off Dark Link, which means it's just a really eerie, introspective level. The dark side of the Force was strong in the Water Temple of Ocarina of Time. This track we're about to listen to, it has that maybe maybe it's a bit eerie, but I find this a lot more reflective, the dripping sounds going on. I find it something, meditative, something as relaxing as listening to the water hitting the windowsill during a light rain. It's an interesting track. This is called Flow State Undercurrents by Emunator from ocremix.org from the game The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. That was Flow State Undercurrents by Emunator from ocremix.org from the game The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. The little bit of the potion shop in there as well, the Koji Kondo's soundtrack for that game. I've said it before, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was like my Star Wars when I was a kid, and that soundtrack, I loved it. I would go to temples to listen to their soundtrack specifically. After I had beaten them, I would just travel across Hyrule, just sit there and listen to the music and be like, this is really cool. This is interesting. After that very chill nature piece, now we have an electronic dance synth adrenaline shot. This is a happy, glitchy, boppy song. A bit of hip-hop elements in there. It's got the Japanese koto kind of sound going throughout. It's just, this song is just so much fun and groovy. It's a song that I feel like I could break into a sweat dancing to. It's just so loud and in your face. Kind of a song I'd like to hear on DDR as well, this track. I'd like to duo this track with a friend, I think, on DDR or Stepmania. That would be a lot of fun. And I don't know anything about this game. I'm not even sure I'll be able to pronounce it. Here we go. So this is Teyandee by Black Ace from ocremix.org from the game Kyatto Ninden Teyandee.
頼むぞニャンキー。
間違え
That was Teyandee by Black Ace from ocremix.org from the game Kyatto Ninden Teyandee. An NES game from 1991. Don't know anything about it. I love the way that track opened with that kind of 8-bit NES sound, and then the club version of the song just drops in, pushes it out, and it becomes a full-on party mix. All right, we've got a two-parter here. We just did a Final Fantasy VII special episode where we played all the tracks were from Final Fantasy VII in celebration of the Final Fantasy VII remake. People seem to be loving that remake, loving that game, especially during this time right now. This two-parter was something I wanted to include, but I didn't have enough room, so I brought it over here. We're going to be playing both parts. This is a remix of the first track you're going to hear is called Philharmonic Suite Part 1, and it's remixing the opening bombing mission by Nobuo Uematsu from Final Fantasy VII. And then you will hear the Weapon Raid source being remixed in the Philharmonic Suite Final. So both these tracks are done by Jeremy Robson. They're just these big, impressive orchestral pieces of these 7 tracks. Something that sounds like it came directly off of the Final Fantasy VII soundtrack. It sounds so professional and so well done. It really does feel like you have to double check to make sure what you're listening to is a remix and not something Nobuo Uematsu had put together himself. I will see you at the end of these two-parters, so please enjoy Philharmonic Suite Part 1 and Philharmonic Suite Final by Jeremy Robson from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. That was Philharmonic Suite Part 1 and Philharmonic Suite Final by Jeremy Robson from the game Final Fantasy VII. And on that Final Fantasy VII special we just did, I sang the praises of all the music of Final Fantasy VII. It really does have an absolutely fantastic soundtrack. Something that's felt like Nobuo Uematsu was saying to himself, good isn't good enough. He really reached for the stars, and I think he got a little beyond him with that soundtrack. It's impressive, it's iconic, it's genre-defining. What Jeremy Robson did there, again, absolutely impressive. One person. That is a fantastically professional piece. Recently, I've been kind of just bouncing between games. I haven't really decided on which one on a game that I want to play long term. I've been just kind of picking a bunch of quick ones. One game I just played was Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, which was kind of the spin-off prequel to Wolfenstein: The New Order, where it was using the New Order engine to do like a World War II prequel of the Wolfenstein game. I don't have a lot of experience with the Wolfenstein games. I only played Wolfenstein 3D at a youth center growing up every now and then. I had fun time, but I didn't really know what I was doing, so I never really played it. I played Return to Castle Wolfenstein on the PC, which was like a PS2 era game, and then I played The New Order and The Old Blood. And The Old Blood was fun! The Old Blood was kind of a quick roller coaster ride of a game. The story was less heavy than the New Order because you're just taking care of Nazis in World War II. And then it has a really weird demon boss fight that kind of comes out of nowhere and doesn't play like the rest of the game. You know, for a quick ride, I enjoyed it. This track we're about to listen to is a bombastic orchestral piece by Beckett 007. Probably pulling a bit from John Williams' playbook here. This is Blazkowicz's Great Escape by Beckett 007 from ocmx.org from the game Wolfenstein 3D. was Blazkowicz Great Escape by Beckett007 from ocremix.org from the game Wolfenstein 3D. Another game I decided to play was Sonic the Hedgehog 2 over the weekend, and I was playing it on PC, so I was using save states. I beat a level, save, and then beat a level, and then save, because I didn't want to have to start the whole game over when I lost in Casino World or whatever. I was real bad at a lot of these levels. As soon as we get to Chemical Plant Zone, which I think was maybe as far as I ever got to as a kid. And I remember being excited to play Sonic 2 because I liked Tails and he was in the cartoons. So it was fun playing this one. I actually think I prefer the level design in general as a platformer from the first game than the second one. But the second one was so much better done in terms of getting Sonic to go fast, which is, the point. The track I chose is from Metropolis Zone, and I chose it because this is a remix that I have been listening to forever without having any real connotation to the game. It's a weird piece, a distorted sound, a lot of heavy electronic guitar. It's a piece that always kind of, I find a bit abrasive at times, but I've always just kind of gone back to it. There's something so strange about the sound that brings me back. Oh, and this came from the album Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Hedgehog Heaven. So this is called Next My Generation by Analoq, from OC Remix's album, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Hedgehog Heaven. All right, so that was Next My Generation by Analoq from OC Remix's album Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Hedgehog Heaven, from the game Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I don't understand these last levels. I don't understand how anybody beat this back in the day. Those last levels with Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, they're just so nasty. So I can't fully recall a lot of the boss fights that were in Donkey Kong 64. I was so excited for Donkey Kong 64 and then a little bit let down because it was just bloated and it had too many collectibles and new characters I didn't care about while getting rid of some of the old characters from the Donkey Kong Country games. And yeah, the boss fights, they're just lost to time with me. But the one I do remember is the factory boss, which was the factory boss. It was the Jack-in-the-Box, right? Yeah, it was the Jack-in-the-Box that bounced around. I think the reason why he's stuck is because I always found him creepy. It was creepy and weird, and I didn't like him. He's just a Jack-in-the-Box out to kill me. But what does the Jack-in-the-Box out to kill me have to do with Donkey Kong 64? Surely that's a boss that belongs to like Banjo-Kazooie or even Mario 64 before it ends up in Donkey Kong 64. Such a strange and mean-looking boss that was. But the music here, it matches that. It's creepy, it's angry, a little bit evil, it's laughing at you as you're running from it terrified. This is Mad Jack's Drop by Steele from ocremix.org from the game Donkey Kong 64. that was Mad Jack's Drop by Steele from ocremix.org from the game Donkey Kong 64, and that track is actually from Badass Boss Themes Volume 3. They did 3 volumes of those. Scraping the bottom of the barrel when you're going for Donkey Kong 64's boss themes, maybe, but that track, I think, is 100% in it. It's a spooky little track, that thing. Up next is a rather pretty orchestral piece that's remixing music from 2 games, Guild Wars and more prominently World of Warcraft. I put some time into World of Warcraft back in 2006, and then again recently when they released Classic. It's the Stormwind theme that I'm here for with this track. That's a great piece of music in World of Warcraft, one that you hear and you kind of feel the history, you feel the safety, you feel the nobility of Stormwind in that original track. With this one, All Nations Rise, with this classical take, it's kind of aligning it with maybe some of the Lord of the Rings music. And I mean, Stormwind has a very Gondor feel about it. And listening to it, it makes me want to go back to World of Warcraft. Luckily, the classic that just came out kind of got some of that out of me, and I don't need to do that right now. All memories I have of Ironforge and Stormwind are warm memories in World of Warcraft, even if that game took over my life. So this is All Nations Rise by the Wingless from ocremix.org from the game World of Warcraft. That was All Nations Rise by the Wingless from ocremix.org from the game World of Warcraft and Guild Wars, but more specifically, World of Warcraft. When you ask, what did I do during the summer of 2006, all I can say is World of Warcraft and X-Men The Last Stand. I saw X-Men The Last Stand 3 times, and I played World of Warcraft that summer. And that was it. Once the summer ended, I was like, wait, what did I do this summer? I was like, oh, I think I know what I need to uninstall. You know, I said that thing about that Kyatto Ninden Teyandee song being a DDR mix, and here we go. It's a Castlevania track that's been turned into a DDR mix, which makes a lot of sense considering they're both Konami games. So if Konami ever wanted to revitalize, bring back DDR in its true self, this is a track that I think could be on that. This is Curse Revolution, and it's mixing the Bloody Tears and Vampire Killer music from Super Castlevania 4 together. And yeah, it has that cheesy, sparkly sound that you hear a lot in DDR music. It's a lot of energy, a lot of adrenaline, something that's supposed to keep you moving on the DDR pad. And then it does that thing that some of the tracks do too, where it kind of slows down and you can see the arrows that you're supposed to step on and stay on for a while. The BPM going down a bit. It does a lot of things in the song that are very true to Dance Dance Revolution, which I appreciate quite a bit. So this is Curse Revolution by NoppZ from ocremix.org from the game Super Castlevania 4.
Don't hold back the music.
was Curse Revolution by NoppZ from ocremix.org from the game Super Castlevania 4. No, I mean, Bloody Tears and Vampire Killer, it could be all the way back for the original NES, but they're probably remixing these versions more specifically. Like Wolfenstein and Sonic 2, I've been playing some Stepmania again recently to get a sweat to stay active during this time of quarantine. So yeah, I went looking for some kind of DDR sound. So real good. Bloody Tears. Is there anything it can't do? Well, that was the show for this week, and I certainly am not recording this very late in the evening because I forgot what day it is, because I forgot what all days are. But thank you for listening to Radio64 Video Game Music Remix Radio. I have been your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile Network. You can visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. You can share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. And please rate, subscribe, and share the show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. If you haven't, please go back and listen to our Final Fantasy VII special or any of the other past episodes. They're all up there to listen to. The YouTube videos have cover art. On Spotify, you can subscribe there. There are lots of options for your listening pleasure. But for now, see you next week.